Now, I have always had the greatest affection for Elizabeth. I first met her in the late 1940s at a party thrown by Roddy McDowell, her best friend for life. Everything that people say about Elizabeth's looks was truth. She was just illegally beautiful. Years later, Elizabeth and I had a fling, and years after that, I produced and co-starred in a movie with her called There Must Be a Pony, based on James Kirkwood Jr.'s fictionalized memoir of his mother, the silent star Lila Lee. I've always believed that Elizabeth was a terribly underrated actress, and I've always known that she was among the most generous people alive, not just with money, but with the most valuable commodity any of us possesses, her time. But Elizabeth had her flaws, as we all do. Foremost among them was that she was oblivious to the concept of punctuality. A delay of 1 or 2 hours was normal for people waiting for Elizabeth. I've always wondered whether it was a passive-aggressive way of asserting herself for all those years of enforced punctuality at MGM, but she was never late on our picture. Unless she really, really liked you, Elizabeth was always late, and sometimes she was incredibly late even when she did like you, so I wasn't terribly shocked when even after the gopher arrived back at the church with the correct shoes, we were still sitting there. David Guest was growing noticeably perturbed, so he asked Michael Jackson to go find Elizabeth and bring her back alive. Neither David nor Liza wanted to personally force the issue, since they were so pleased that Elizabeth had agreed to come in the first place. Elizabeth was going through one of her bad phases, overweight and not looking good. Michael disappeared into the room where Elizabeth was supposedly getting ready while one of his bodyguards stood watch outside. And then we waited some more. By now, the wedding was an hour late and counting. I asked a man what the holdup was, but he just shrugged and said that Elizabeth was in a room with Michael Jackson. Nobody seemed to be moving, and nobody seemed eager to break up whatever was going on in the waiting room. Because I knew Elizabeth so well, I was finally deputized to get Michael away from her, so the wedding could proceed. Otherwise, we all might find ourselves growing old very slowly at the Marble Collegiate Church. I walked past the bodyguard and into the room. Elizabeth was sitting there gazing at Michael. Michael was on his knees gazing at Elizabeth. He was holding her hand. Nothing was being said. He was besotted with her. He was drinking her in. Michael, I said, we've got to get the wedding started. We have to get going. I want to be with Elizabeth, Michael said in that weird whispery voice. I love Elizabeth. Talking to Michael when he was in one of his reveries was exactly like talking to a 6-year-old waiting up for Santa Claus. You didn't want to disabuse him of his fantasy, but you had to firmly lead him away from the Christmas tree so that the presents could be put out. I love her too, Michael, I said. We all love her. But we have to go ahead with the wedding. There's a church full of people out there, and they're getting restless. You can spend all the time you want with Elizabeth after the wedding. Full disclosure, I was angry, so I might have said all this a little brusquely. By this time, I was heartily sick of the wedding, even though it hadn't even taken place yet. What I wanted to do was to have a drink with Bob Osborne and not be bothered by infantile bullshit. I got them moving, but Elizabeth came out on the wrong side of the church. The guests were divided into men on the left and women on the right, so she had to walk all the way around behind the pews. Since Elizabeth was fairly immobile and walked with difficulty, part of it was with her back, part of it was with the medication for her back, which always gave her a bit of a buzz. So she had to be helped onto the altar. Finally, the wedding got underway. David gave Liza a 3.5-carat diamond ring from Tiffany's. After the minister said he could kiss the bride, David tried to suck the lips off Eliza's face. I was too appalled to say anything. Jill said, "Ooh." Next to her, Liz Smith said, "Double ooh." The reception afterwards was huge. Andy Williams sang. Gloria Gaynor sang. Michael Jackson gave the toast. I noticed some people I hadn't noticed at the wedding. Kirk Douglas, Joan Collins, and Sid Luft, one of Liza's stepfathers. Elizabeth skipped the reception. I finally had my drink with Bob Osborne. For a long time after that, David would call Jill and me to chat. You two are the happiest.